Welcome back inside our 2011 coverage of National Signing Day here at the University of South Florida. Ronan O'Shea inside the Ustream tab. A reminder, Bulls fans, get your questions inside the chat room to me here, as your questions will be read on the air, as we have an opportunity now to sit down with a very special member of the process here today, Steve Horton. He is the Associate Director of Athletics and Compliance here at the University of South Florida. Steve, I imagine this is the busiest day of the year for you, as the fax machine is certainly getting lit up.
Yeah, this is about my, I think, 25th I've done at various institutions, and it's always the big signing day that's really turned into almost to an extravaganza across the country now that you have it on television, and a number of stations carry it, and it's quite a big event now. Mm-hmm.
Again, Bulls fans, get your questions in. If you have any questions about the process of the national letters of intent that the players are sending in today, I know it's a very complicated process. And the question, I guess, that I have for you from the beginning is, people hear so much about a national letter of intent, mm-hmm. NOIs. You see it all over message boards and on TV, particularly on a day like today. But I don't think a lot of people really are familiar with what it is, what the actual letter of intent is. So if you could sort of fill me in on that.
Well, the National Letter of Intent program was started a number of years ago, and it was actually run by the various conferences. And the overall administrator for all of the National Letters of Intent was the Southeastern Conference. About 3 years ago, the NCAA decided that it might be best if they took the program over. The feeling was from the conferences that that would be a good way to go. So the National Letter of Intent program is run out of the NCAA office. When a young man or young lady signs a national letter of intent, we'll probably just talk about football today, but when a young man signs a letter of intent, that letter of intent is a particular form that comes from the NCAA, and we attach with it a grant and aid, which is an offer of a scholarship for a year. The letter of intent and the grant and aid constitute what we call a valid letter of intent. Compliance, we're the ones that put it together. A request from Coach Holtz gives us a form, says, I really want to sign this guy on National Letter of Intent Day. Compliance puts it together. My assistant Rick does that. We put the package together. It has to be signed by the Director of Athletics or the Sport Administrator. It has to be signed by financial aid, signed by the head coach. We put it all together. We give it back to the head coach, and then they send them on out. And the first time they can be signed is 7 in the morning on the National Letter of Intent Day. So it's quite a little process to get it to the young man in question, the one that we're going to sign. We've had some issues sometimes where they don't get delivered when they're supposed to be delivered, but we've got all of them there today. They're all in the hands of the young men. This is quite a bit different than it used to be. In a number of years, not too many years ago, but a few years ago, we could actually go on out and a coach could hand carry the letter of intent and be right there at the signing. When the parents signed it, the parents have to sign it, the young man has to sign it, and they would be right maybe at the school or the home. The coaches could do that. But we changed that a number of years ago, and now we have to send it to them, and we're not actually allowed as coaches or administrators or anybody to be with the young man when he signs. He has to sign that on his own.
Essentially, though, it's a contract that they're coming to USF.
Probably the first contract that a young man signs at 18, and it's the first contract that a parent signs for their kid, and they have to sign it. The parents has to sign it. It's also not a valid letter. It's not an official letter unless the parent does sign it. And sometimes we have young men that are, if they're junior college transfers or if they've gone off to prep school, they may not be there, so we have to. Their parents may not be with them, so we have to send it from the. Once we get it signed, we may get it signed by the young man. Then we have to send it to the parents. Then they have to sign it. And then we have to get it back, and before we send it on off. What we have to do once a signed letter is completed, and we have a copy of it, then we have to send it to the conference office, and then it goes on file from the conference office. Then they report it to the NCAA of all those that have signed a national letter of intent. But like you say, it is the first contract really that a young man gets to sign.
You mentioned a JUCO transfer there, an opportunity now to step inside the chat room where we have a question here from Casey. He wants to know about the eligibility process regarding a JUCO transfer. Do they have to just make the grades, or does their SAT or ACT scores still come into play?
Well, they can come and play as far as admissions, but for the NCAA rule, if a young man goes to a junior college, The usual process is that he has to graduate from that junior college, have X number of transferable hours, and a certain grade point average. The big key is graduation from the junior college. There are some now new course requirements that we have for students that go to a junior college. For example, they have to transfer an English and a math. In the past they did not, but that's a new requirement from the NCAA, that they have their English and your math requirements for their general education requirements out of the way.
I guess what's the next step after this? So they go through the process of sending in the national letter of intent. They fill out the proper paperwork. It gets faxed in. We then announce that X player is coming to the University of South Florida. What's the next biggest challenge after that point?
Well, we do have to get we accept a fax copy of the letter of intent, but we do have to get the final copy, the official copy, the one that has the signature on it, not a fax signature, before we can send it to the conference office. So we still have to gather all that up. So tomorrow we'll start telling all the kids, hey, make sure you send in your official letter. What we do, which we can do under the rules, we give them usually a return envelope, FedEx envelope or a UPS envelope to send it back on in. So we have to make sure we get that back on in. At the same time, we like them to go ahead and start the admissions process if they have not done so already, to fill out the application. They still have to send in their $30 application fee. We have to get transcripts. So all that starts tomorrow.
You mentioned compliance. Normally, when people hear about compliance, it's when something bad happened. That's when it comes out into the news for the most part. If you can just talk a little bit about compliance and what some of the other responsibilities that your staff has here at the University of South Florida, going beyond just football and beyond a day like today.
Well, of course, we handle all of the eligibility, like the person that just asked, eligibility for all student athletes, but we also handle continuing eligibility. There are certain requirements that a student athlete has to ensure that they continue to play as it relates to academics. We handle all of their issues as far as, of course, recruiting, from the recruiting process up to now. But still, there are some recruiting rules that we have that they have to continue to abide by before for football players, before they come for fall practice. The big key with student athletes is continuing eligibility, and that's an area that we work on, that we work directly with the student athletes on.
And then one more question for you. I think a lot of people get lost in the mix today. Is it's not just football. Other sports actually have their National Signing Day. Can you shed some light on the other sports here at the University of South Florida that have athletes over the course of today sending in those letters of intent?
Well, there's actually 3 signing dates each year. There is a early fall signing date, and that's the main sports of baseball and basketball. They can sign during that time. The February signing date is a one-day for all the sports that can sign on that day, and those sports are football, men's and women's soccer, and track and field. They get one day to sign. And then in May, we have another signing date, and those that had a early signing period of in the fall, they get now a spring signing period, and those sports can sign more kids at that time. You see that a lot in basketball. They may sign a couple in the fall, and then they sign a couple in the spring. A lot of other sports, golf, tennis, and so forth, usually don't sign too many in the fall. They sign all theirs in the spring. But football, it's actually interesting. Their signing date is actually from today, and it's through May 1st. You can still sign a national letter of intent. Most young men sign on the first day. I did notice there's a young man I can't think of what school he's going to. He's having a special day on February 14th, Valentine's Day. I guess he wants to sign on Valentine's Day. So he's going to sign a letter, not at USF, but at another school I read about in the paper. So they can sign up until that date. After that period, the signing date is over.
All right, Steve, very informative. I'll let you get back to work. I know
Okay,
it's a busy time of the
Yeah,
year
we'll check
for
in
you.
online as we go, so you guys can announce them. So that's
Thank
what
you
we're
very
doing.
much. Good talking to you.
Good talking with you.
We've got much more coverage here at GoUSFBulls.com. National Signing Day 2011. Be sure to click on inside Signing Day Central here at GoUSFBulls.com. A complete list of the players which have committed to USF, along with exclusive video of their best high school highlights. Much more coverage. Also, Jim Lauk will be at the mic as letters of intent continue to come in today throughout the day.